So we're often at these conferences and we talk a lot about our tech, but not always about new ways of thinking. This is that. This is also the true story of the moment that changed my life. So a quick introduction, my name is Matthew. I work with Wavefront. Wavefront's a modern app infrastructure observability platform. I've been there for about 3 years. I'm not a sales guy. I'm not a sales engineer either. My team actually runs a service called Wavefront. So 9 years. 9 years ago, I hit this inflection point in my life. This inflection so transformational, I still think about it today. It shaped a lot of what I do. It's the basis for this idea of BeachOps. And I'm going to tell you about it, but first I want to tell you about the CEO who quit. So I work with this woman, Mitchell Baker. She was CEO of Mozilla, the makers of Firefox. She was also chairwoman of the Mozilla Foundation. And when I started, Mozilla was small. It operated like a small but extremely well-funded startup. And it couldn't have been more than 40 people back in 2006, maybe a bit less. But about 2 years later, Mitchell stepped out of the CEO role and just worked on her chairperson role. At the time, that felt very abrupt to me. It felt like she quit this high-powered role to work on what felt like a small role. She blogged about that change at the time, but didn't talk too much more about it. But 2 years later, I sat in this meeting, this company All Hands, and this is where I had this transformational experience. See, this All Hands, Mitchell started to reflect on that decision. And I've never forgotten the essence of what she said. You see, back in 2008, she started to ask herself, what am I doing that someone else could do as well as I? Are there things not being done that only I could do? And one of her realizations was that in life as a leader, you're always looking to mentor or grow the next you. And there comes a point in time where you realize that others can do what you can do. They might not get there 100%. They may never get to 100%. They might only get to 90%, but that last 10% you can coach. And their way is going to be different, but it's entirely their way. Her other great realization, though, was there was a giant pile of work that only she could work on. And that pile of work wasn't getting worked on at all. So by quitting the CEO role, she actually freed her time to focus on the parts of Mozilla and the Mozilla mission that she was uniquely qualified to focus on. So the things that only Mitchell could work on. So in her words, more recently I started framing the question a little more precisely, asking myself, what am I doing that someone else could do at least as well? Are there unmet aspects of the opportunity in front of us that I could do a particularly good job moving forward if I focus more on them? So my first lesson from Mitchell was to recognize there's always work for which only I can work on. And I try to find ways to focus on just that. In other words, what should I stop doing? What can only I work on? So I want you to hold on to that thought for just a second and fast forward to BeachOps, because I want to tell you what that is. If you look around, you see some of us wearing these shirts or a bunch of these stickers. And this idea has become how we think about running production. It's how we talk about running production. It's become part of our culture or part of our way. And the core essence of BeachOps is this. Like, I don't want to work, I just want to go to the beach. And to do that, I have to build tools, I have to build systems to do my job. I have to empower others to do my job. I want computers to reason for me so that I can do the things that only I can work on, so I can go back to the beach. So that means I also build to be lazy. So I kind of want you guys to look at the work you're working on, because all of us are moving to the cloud in some fashion, and it's hard, and sometimes it's really hard. But right now, today, I want to start this culture shift. I really want you to change from building to do to building for what you're not going to do. I want you to build to be lazy. And why? Why does this matter? And what does it get you to change your framing? Because I'm asking you to plan to not do, and that's the opposite of everything we've been told. But I want you to trust for billing. And as an example, I use Wavefront. Over the past 2 years, our infrastructure has grown more than 600%. We've had more than 300% increase in alerts a month. But at that same time period, you've only hired one person. And that's because there's a relentless focus on automating work away. We automate system failovers and self-healing. We automate our alerts away. And my job postings actually start with automate, automate, automate. So of course we work to reduce our toil and work to reduce what we have to work on. And who doesn't want that? So we build for lazy, we build for the beach. But that transformative inflection point I talked about, that insight, that work that only I could do, I wanted to find a way to make it work for me. And about 3 years ago at a startup, I got to try it out, and it worked. So 3 years ago, I started at Wavefront. And again, it was probably about 40 people, probably a little less. You see, when I left Mozilla, I had a team of 70 people, and I knew I would never build a team that large again. I was really curious how to use technology as a force multiplier and how I could actually build to be lazy. And at the startup, it was kind of sink or swim. When I started, there was a lot of work to be done. There's only 3 of us, then there's 2. And for 3 months, I was a one-man show. And the first time I was on call, I got paged every 30 minutes. So maybe not every 30 minutes, but often enough for the same issue. And the fix was simple: log in, restart a process. And that very night, I wrote some code, I tied it into a Wavefront alert, and Wavefront would fix the problem for me. But more work kept coming, and everything felt like it was blocked on me. So I started building other tools to offload that work, to basically empower others to do that work, that force multiplier. I finally hired someone, and we would kind of joke around, like it'd be great if we didn't have to work, or if we could just go to the beach and do our job. And every time we'd get an issue, we'd ask, like, why aren't the devs doing this? Or why can't they do this? Or why can't customer support take care of this? We kept talking about this way, about why we're even involved. We'd often turn to building tools or processes for them to do what at that time felt like SRE only work. We also didn't want to feel like we were tied to a computer. We were the only 2 guys on call, and we wanted to figure out how can we run most of the service from our phone or from the beach. Because just like Mitchell, we realized there's a lot of work to be done that only an ops engineer could do or only an SRE could do, and everything else we wanted to let others do. So we kept talking about wanting to work from the beach, that about 4 months later, we just changed the Slack name. Like our culture had actually changed at that point. So every one of you runs some service or some production service, and every one of you has more work to do, right? And a bunch of work that only you can do and a bunch of work that you can offload. And so for us, something started because we thought it'd be more fun to not work and to go to the beach. And we really wanted to figure out how can we automate ourselves out of work to go back to the beach. So we changed the question to change the outcome. What would I do if I were billed for lazy? And this is still the core of how we run the Wavefront service. See, we've empowered others to manage upgrades and rollouts. We make a lot of our alerts do our debugging for us. We build tools to self-heal from faults and outages. And we've empowered others to do what might be thought of as SRE-only work. And more importantly, we make the computer's reason for us. And it works, because remember I said over that time period we only added 1 SRE? How do we do that? Well, we built application-level tracing into our own product so we could get detailed insights into our own service. And we build in these red metrics that we can use as SREs, this request rate, this error rate, and the latency of each call. And we use these service maps to understand how our microservices relate to each other. And again, those red metrics there, the request rate, the error rate, and the latency. We build a lot of the troubleshooting into the actual alert. So it's a long query, but all the troubleshooting is in there for us. We build a lot of our charts. We explore the data in our system. We explore our system. And then we use these advanced features like anomaly detection. So we let the system tell us where the problems are. So I want you to change the culture. And the next time you get that alert, I want you to play the 5 whys. You know, why did it fire? What was the thing that caused the thing that made it fire? And can you catch that earlier? Can you try to build more troubleshooting into the alert? And can you make the computer fix it for you? I'm going to change the culture. I want you to call each other out when you aren't building for lazy. And more importantly, allow yourself to be called out when you aren't building for lazy. See, I want you to aspire just to work from the beach. I want you to aspire to automate your work away. Because like I said, there's always more work waiting for you, work that only you can do. So I really want you to hold on this one idea. I want you to build for the beach. I want you to be curious and ask why, because you'll be building for lazy, not for busy. And challenge yourself, because you won't actually be doing less. You'll be doing a lot more. And you'll be working on the right things. Because building to do less turns out to be the force multiplier. Now look, what I shared to you is great once you have it, and the hard part's actually getting started. But I want you to trust for building for lazy, and then it'll get you more. I want you to be willing to be that team, that outlier. So trust that. So thanks for this. I've got stickers if anyone wants to chat.